And there's just kind of general concern that maybe these bigger ideas and X are being a distraction for him, right?
It's been a rough year, but also just a rough May for Tesla. Shares are down about 6% in May.
Everyone that you speak to in the automotive space knows that the Chinese EV makers are out there.
All that and more. So let's get to it. Tesla stock is up again in the pre-market, just a little over 0.25%, sitting at 172.34. Were you able to buy a few shares at 169? I know, I did. Oh, disrupt Tesla. Trying to storm Giga Berlin. More protests follow after that. I don't know what to make of this. I mean, sure, Tesla plans to expand Giga Berlin, but it's in the plan. It's not like Tesla's trying to cross over into some sovereign land or something. It just feels to me that even if you were protesting for environmental reasons, there's other places you could be doing this. Other places that pose larger threats than the transitioning of the Earth to a sustainable energy economy. But I suppose if you don't have haters, you're probably not doing it right.
Tesla's stock down now more than 30% this year, driven by declining revenues, shrinking margins, and possibly some of CEO Elon Musk's controversial comments. Joining us right now is Tim Higgins, Wall Street Journal business columnist. His latest column is, quote, "The man whose musings fuel Elon Musk's nightmares." Tim, why don't you tell us about it?
Worried about planetary destruction, so he's had SpaceX to kind of make sure humanity had other planets to be on, and Tesla was about protecting against global warming. In recent years, we've heard these other concerns that he's talked about: killer AI, and now more recently the woke mind virus, kind of his shorthand for progressive, liberal, politically overcorrect ideas. And we've seen him interact a lot with a Canadian professor whose book, The Parasitic Mind, it kind of helps fuel some of those worries. And even Elon says this book gives him nightmares.
I can already tell where this is going to go. The thought that Elon Musk's concerns fuel his passions, SpaceX, Tesla, AI. What did Elon Musk do to try and combat the woke mind virus that was acquired Twitter? And from the ashes of Twitter, gave birth to X. I'm a big fan of free speech. I suppose it's easy to say that if someone is trying to restrict your right to free speech. But like Elon Musk says, free speech only matters with speech that you disagree with. What it does do is make one examine how much they really like free speech.
And so how should maybe investors should go read this book? What would be the takeaway if they did?
Well, it helps kind of explain some of the worldview that Elon has started kind of leaning towards in the last few years, right? He's very much active on X, concerned about some of these immigration issues, DEI issues, generally things that are overly politically correct. He kind of pushes back. And, for years, he probably didn't necessarily bother people because Tesla stock was doing relatively well. But in recent months, as you point out, it hasn't been doing as well. And there's just kind of general concern that maybe these bigger ideas and X are being a distraction for him, right? And
it's true. Elon's becoming way more outspoken on these politically correct issues, as is his right as a human being. And you'd have to be crazy to think it doesn't impact the business side of Tesla. But that's not the problem. The problem is you'd have to be even crazier to think that it's a massive, irrevocably damaging to the brand. Sales are down year over year 18%. It's gotta be because Elon Musk on X posting about random shit. Get the f*** out of here with that.
How much do you think, people talk about how in the United States, EV ownership and buyers, it's become political, meaning blue states, you can see materially different buying patterns than you can see even in red states. And how much do you think he has stoked that?
Yeah, absolutely. He's probably brought in Republicans to Tesla, but maybe not because of his politics, but because of just Tesla vehicles' performance over the years. But you look at the data about consumers at the end of last year when he was very much politically having these political outbursts, and you could see Democrats kind of walking away from the brand, not stomaching some of that talk, and that's a harmful thing for the company at a time when Democrats really are the biggest cohort of electric car buyers generally in the U.S.
I've been on this planet for about 40 years. I don't think I've ever made a politically charged financial decision. I didn't buy my first Tesla because it was the democratic thing to do. But I do know there are those individuals that don't take a liking to Elon Musk. Associating the techno king with Tesla is not a far leap. I don't blame them for it. Even my neighbor bought a Cadillac Lyriq because she's not fond of Elon Musk. And when she told me that, I was like, you're not fond of the best product you could possibly have? Just like I told her, I don't agree with a lot of what Elon Musk says or does. But the one thing that he does do is make a damn fine automobile. That she couldn't disagree with. I'm about 80% sure her next vehicle purchase will not only be a Tesla, I'm pretty sure Panda's Falcon Door wings has seduced her.
It is time for FOMO, of course, and we're talking Tesla, which is up about 1.8% on the session. A nice start to this week for a name that's down still about 31% here on the year. There's some analyst news, and then I also saw the fact that there's this fire and hire strategies, bringing back some of these fired employees. I mean, the truly a gift that is always giving is the news cycle of Tesla.
Yeah, we can always count on Tesla for headlines. Today, there's multiple headlines that could be driving the stock price. You talked about the negative note from Guggenheim. Pretty sure that's not what's behind these gains, but we will talk about that in just a second. But yeah, Tesla shares up 1.8%. It's been a rough year, but also just a rough May for Tesla. Shares are down about 6% in May, but they're snapping a 4-day losing streak today with this nice pop off the highs, but still up pretty substantially. Over the weekend, Tesla did introduce this promotional rate of 0.99% annual percentage rate on qualifying Model Y purchases.
What? If I'm not mistaken, you have to put some money down and Tesla will give you this incredible interest rate. I think if you put about $4,000 down or so, you get a 0.99 interest. Holy smoke. You cannot beat those numbers.
And it is important to note that that less than 1% rate is quite a bit below market rates. Previously, they were as high as 6.5%. So the hope is that drives volume in what's been a sluggish demand environment for EVs. So there's that going on. Meanwhile, you mentioned the fire and hire strategy. Bloomberg is reporting that Elon Musk and Tesla, they're bringing back some of the 500 workers from the supercharging team that they let go last month. So that's a Bloomberg report right now. Not sure if that's behind any of these gains today.
I'm not surprised. They did this exact same strategy over there at X, formerly known as Twitter. A little bit of scorched earth slash and burn, if you will. Bringing back only the essentials to keep this well-oiled machine running.
Also, of course, the Biden administration is considering putting some pretty substantial tariffs on Chinese EVs. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that those tariffs are going to be hiked to 102.5% from about 27.5%. Those are supposed to be rolled out tomorrow and will target other industries as well outside of just EVs, just in terms of batteries and minerals and potentially solar. That could be left off the list, but steel, aluminum. So that could be having an impact as well. You mentioned that Guggenheim note. They reiterated their sell rating on Tesla. They have a $126 price target, which is, Tesla shares are currently, as you can see here, around $171.50. The analyst there says, all else equal, we would expect U.S. Model Y inventory to decline from current record levels. Note, with April sales data now collected for most countries and regions, we believe current quarterly deliveries are tracking well below our 440,000 estimate.
If Tesla continues to find ways to circumvent these high interest rates, I'm going to have to raise my base expectations of what the Model Y figures will be. Tesla plans to have notably less growth than they did back in 2023, but I'm under the impression that there will still be some growth, meaning I fully expect Tesla to have some ramping of the sales heading into Q3 and beyond. Like really intense production and sales. In turn, I'm not too terribly excited about what Q2 is going to bring. This will undoubtedly impact my trading of Tesla, but for the long term, when I buy stock, I understand that I'm going to have to be a little more patient for the stock market to realize Tesla's true value. In the meantime, just take advantage of these discounts.
Tesla hit a bit of a rough patch. You saw globally sales down about 9% year on year. And when you're looking at the EV space and the automotive space, year on year is usually the best way to take a look at this market to see how things are changing and growing. And so when it comes to GM, when it comes to Rivian, Hyundai, and even Lucid, there's just an opening here for them to expand their market share. Each of them has a different strategy as it pertains to 2024. And this doesn't mean that either of them are gonna, or any of them are gonna pass Tesla in this year.
Because they can't. Tesla's doing laps around this bitch.
But from years working in the EV space, all you would hear is, we're always competing for number two. We can never surpass Tesla.
Has it changed?
And whether you're looking at the kind of EV car space or even EV charging, the fact that Tesla has taken a step back, both in terms of where they're focusing their sales, as well as their EV charging network efforts, it means that other people, if they are able to step up, can make inroads.
A step back? Look, I'm willing to give this a little credence if battery electric vehicles, the charging infrastructure, all that was at its most mature. Internal combustion engines have been around for over a century. I think it's pretty safe to say that internal combustion engines are at the end of their innovative cycles. Whereas battery electric vehicles, computers on wheels, are experiencing innovations from everything to the software to the hardware. The most expensive thing in a battery electric vehicle is the battery. What's Wright's law say again, Kathy? For every cumulative doubling of units produced, cost will fall by a constant percentage. Considering Tesla is producing an order of magnitude more than the next competitor, just look at these EV sales. Who do you think is going to reduce their costs faster? This is laughable. Tesla's agility is what allows them to take a pause, implement innovations in the manufacturing process, in the software, in the battery. Tesla can afford to do this. The other players, not so much, considering Tesla has industry-leading margins.
It feels like after an initial surge over the last 5, 6, 7 years that there's been a lull in demand for EVs. And I don't know, A, do you believe that's the case? And B, why is that, do you think?
So last year we saw in the US about 50% year-on-year growth for electric vehicles from 2022. So if anything, that was a really strong and successful year. We did begin to see some of the challenges around adoption as you move from that kind of early adopters phase to more of the mass market. And that's where consumers are going to be less patient with the technology and with the upfront cost, as well as charging infrastructure. And I think what makes the US different than other regions like Europe and China is that charging really hasn't been figured out to the same extent. And the heavy reliance on Tesla means that when Tesla steps back from charging investments, lays off many of the supercharging network team, it means it's going to be more of a uncertainty for the consumer here. So data in the first quarter, we're finalizing. We've seen a lot of data come up. Outside of Tesla, other automakers like Ford, Hyundai, Rivian, all did quite well, but GM, Volkswagen, and Tesla took a step back, and that has a big impact on the market in the first quarter. We'll see how Q2 goes.
EV adoption is on an exponential growth curve. Charging infrastructure, despite what the news media might have you think, is growing and expanding rapidly in the United States. I'm not too terribly concerned with that. Where there's money to be made, the chargers will be built. But this shift from the early adopters to the mainstream consumer, that all comes down to the price of the vehicle. And to a certain extent, the degree of what the consumer is willing to put up with potential gas prices. Those early adopters, they're not going back to the internal combustion engine. As Tesla continues to open up the total addressable market, lowering their prices and now the interest rates, it's no wonder I'm seeing more and more gray Model Ys out there on the roads. There's nothing stealthy about it.
Looking down the barrel here this week of some tariffs that will be imposed on China EVs imports into the U.S., just knowing what we know about how these car makers operate and look at losses per vehicle when it comes to EVs, what would be better for Rivian and GM? Like more competition to kind of light a fire, or less that gives them more time to do stuff?
Is that really a serious question? Obviously, GM would have preferred not to have to switch to battery electric vehicles, let alone have to compete with something that's cheaper, more functional, and have much higher performance than anything they could push off the line. The story's a little better for Rivian, but they're still at negative margins, desperately trying to reach economies of scale. This R2 platform should be enough to push them over the edge. Without a shadow of a doubt, EV startup, legacy automotive, these tariffs are absolutely necessary. The only company in the world operating from a position of strength against any of the Chinese auto manufacturers is Tesla.
Everyone that you speak to in the automotive space knows that the Chinese EV makers are out there, your BYD, and other brands. I mean, we even saw Zeekr last week.
Yeah, go public, right?
Yeah, go public. And so the pressure should already be there. Tariffs, you're not seeing really too many Chinese EVs really imported into the US. Volvo and Polestar might be the exception. But really what those tariffs looks like, I want to keep an eye on the battery portion, because I think that could have more of an impact than the couple or the thousands of EVs from China specifically, given that the battery supply chain is still very heavily reliant on China, particularly for those lithium iron phosphate batteries, LFP, which is used to help bring down costs in electric vehicles. For GM, GM is competing in China already, so they have a good sense of how competitive that space is. And really there you're seeing great technology and upfront cost at a low level, which eventually you'll see here. I mean, if anything, maybe the tariffs help stem the gap a little bit, but if you fall behind and don't invest in electric vehicles now, we could be having the same conversation in 2 to 3 years with those Chinese automakers aiming to come to the US.
And unfortunately, he's right. The legacy auto manufacturers scaling back on their EV production, that undoubtedly includes the supply chains. The only way to reduce these costs meaningfully is to produce battery electric vehicles. Not only improving the manufacturing process, but ironing out supply chains. All of these things will be crucial in generating profits from battery electric vehicles. In the beginning, the legacy auto manufacturers had high ambitions. But as that high wore off, they realized this ain't easy as Tesla makes it look.
Do we have a sense that the U.S. OEMs, the Fords, the GMs, Stellantis of the world, have pulled back on their commitment to EVs, or maybe their timing of investments on EVs? Do you think that's happening?
I think the timing on investment in EVs is happening, right? In terms of their overall strategy, they've been, I think, approaching the market in a different way. Ford has been pushing towards this new EV platform that they're beginning to kind of produce in next year. GM, of course, has its Ultium platform. And for Stellantis, they don't actually have any fully electric vehicles here yet, although they have the highest selling plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, the Jeep Wrangler. A lot of this is on timing. But what I always like to say is that timing, and the investment is one thing, but you have to produce ultimately. And so if it's a delay of 6 months, a year, that's okay, but the cost of inaction gets higher. And if you really say, not just to the Chinese automakers, but other automakers like Honda and Kia really could make up a lot of ground here. And that's why there's such a big opportunity for Rivian to kind of step in. Ford and Tesla remain the number 1 and 2 EV makers here in the US, but they don't really have any near-term goals for 2024.
Really? If you say so. Robotaxi, refine the next generation platform, seems relatively clear to me. In conclusion, protests at Giga Berlin continue. It's kind of mind-boggling, but I suppose everybody needs something to be mad at. Elon Musk is too opinionated, and it's hurting Tesla's brand. Maybe a little bit, but I mean, it's ridiculous to think that anybody's gonna make a $30,000+ decision because Elon Musk rubs them the wrong way. I'm sure it happens. But eventually, capitalism will win out. The best product will win out. After using Tesla's products for the past 4 years, cars, insurance, solar panels, etc., I have no doubt that people are going to gravitate toward these products. Tesla hiring back some of those individuals from the supercharger team, not real shocking given the way he handled the operations over there at X. And the media seems to believe that this is an opportunity for other OEMs to take advantage of the lapse, the stumble that happens in Tesla right now. Considering Tesla is producing a magnitude more vehicles than the next OEM, good luck with that. Everyone who's making internal combustion engines on down to EVs should be quaking in their boots. Don't get it twisted. 5-6 years from now, everyone in the industry will be competing for second place. That's all I've got for you today. Be easy. Peace.